Is this an adventure or what? We don't need unexplained phenomena. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey we're taking you on. I know you come expecting to hear about big cats, cryptids, UFOs. We will touch on some of that, but I think it's worth sharing some of this for you, don't you? There's only 2 living souls up here today.
Because I can see it in my mind, I can see it in my head what I saw, but I can't describe.
Our eyes was closed, like a brightish light in my face, and I just felt paralysed.
Someone said there's something out there, so we had a look. It looked like a walnut. That's the only way I can describe it.
It was like it had loads of tiny little windows all over it, and it had lights in those windows, but not a light that illuminates.
Anyway, we were ushered into this lounge. This fella came in, he said, whatever you saw was a weather effect.
And everything is deathly silent. There's no sea, there's no wind, there's no night noise, because, you know, there's foxes all over here. There's nothing.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Sunday night's live stream. Hope you're all having a good bank holiday and I don't know, good food, maybe a glass of wine or a cup of tea. Hope you're all enjoying yourselves anyway. We're had a busy week, as I'm sure many of you people will have as well. Spent a bit of time in North Yorkshire in forests. Got a few interesting reports in tonight. We should have been talking to Annabella, who we're going to talk to us about her experiences from childhood to present day. Something's cropped up for her. So fingers crossed, we'll be speaking to her next week. And it will be interesting. It'll be worth waiting for. And so tonight I'm going to talk about Wilsthorpe. I've not really done it, well, probably for a few years. You know, I talked about it years ago, probably 2017, 2018 at a conference. And I went into sort of quite a lot of detail that particular day, but I'll go into a bit of detail today. So we'll cover Wilsthorpe and see what you guys think after you've heard it, because we hear all these claims about the greatest UFO cases and, you know, the most sensational UFO event. And Wilsthorpe's interesting. Let's just put it that way. And I'll leave it for you guys to decide. But before we jump into that, let's just have a look who's in chat. I think Pete Sinclair, I hope you're feeling better, Pete. I see Mel's in. Saxa, I'm not even going to pronounce it. I said it's 9693. Graham Williams, Magenta Block. See, Gemma's doing moderating. I think Lee is going to do it. I don't know if Alison's coming in tonight. Michael Walters, good to see you. Let's have a look. I think Lynn is in. Mia Girl's in. Always great support. I really appreciate that. Jack Newcastle, Annie FB. Let's have a look. Where are we going? 40. Studs, good to see you in, Mark. Great to see you. And Andrew 8798. We've got 40, and I'm just Dizzy Doors. Let's have a look, yeah. And we've got Linny in, haven't we? So Mrs. Linny might be in. Jane Louise Harding, Janice. We could go on. We'll do some more as we kind of get into this. There'll be a film going out hopefully on Tuesday. I'll just put a picture up of the banner, and obviously I haven't uploaded it yet, so you'll get an idea of what we're talking about. So that's where we'll be. The Phantoms of Broxer Forest. So we shall be sharing a few thoughts on that on Tuesday, all being well. So myself and Chris went in there Tuesday. We spent quite a long time in there, and there's a part 1 and a part 2. They're both about 30 minutes long, just covering some of the things that we'd covered before, but it's always interesting. It's always fascinating going into them forests, isn't it? So, Sam Watson's in, Amelia, that's Moondog, let's have a Sober Carper, and Karen Behrman, good to see you, Karen. Ian Langton, good to see you. Let's have a look anyway. So we're going to do Wilsthorpe. So we're going to jump back to 2009. And I didn't realise back in 2009 that we'll call it this event had taken place. I did, though, know that there were probably as much UFO activity in 2009 as I've ever encountered, as in reports from other people coming in, because I need to stress that, you know, when people think, God, this man's talking about all these reports, it can't really be happening. These are other people's reports. I'm just relaying them. I say it many times, we go on them cliff tops, and for the most part, we don't see loads and loads. We have experiences. We kind of dialed into it. We're looking for it. But for the amount of time we spend up there, it don't pay great dividends. But when it does, it's good. Right, I said we're going to do Wilsthorpe. Just before we do that, earlier in the week, Heidi and Jenny came to stay at a really great location, incredible Airbnb. And I'm not going to say where it is, but it's a great place if anybody wants to contact me, and I'll tell them about it later. But they came, spent some time on cliff tops with us, which they've done now for a few years, come a couple of times a year. And another lady came, quite by chance, staying in the same place, Michaela. So it was lovely to meet Michaela. I hope she's going to come up in the week, and she'll be welcome. She'll be made welcome by all of us. So yeah, it were really good. But whilst Michaela were there on, I think it was Friday, there's me, Ian, I think there's Chris Mack and Steve. A strange sound, close to us all. Can't account for these sounds. Do you know what I mean? I know it's difficult. I can't replicate it for you guys, and it's just me talking. But let me assure you that myself and at least 3 other people, I can't think of a fourth one, so there's 4 of us in total, heard this strange sound again as later in the night. Myself and Chris Mack walked along the cliff tops in the darkness, went down to meet 2 other people that had come up. They'd travelled a lot of miles, come a considerable distance just to soak in this incredible atmosphere, soak in this experience. And we went down just to have a natter to them. And on the way back, there's another noise. There's a guy walking back with us. I will say his name, but I won't say his name because with nature of what he does. But he's walking back with us with his little dog. And this noise was above us heads, just above mine and Chris's heads. Well, I've got to say just above Chris's because he's 6'2" and I'm 5'6". But it's like a woof, 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 straight above his heads. Chris heard it, I heard it, no mistaking it. So is this unexplained phenomena? Is it is it a swan flying overhead? Oh, we didn't see anything. And I know it don't conform to UFOs and strange lights and reports of strange animals, but we're noting all these little anomalies now. So I just thought I'd get those bits in for you guys. Obviously, I've followed up on the big cat sighting at Flamborough Lighthouse, and that's quite interesting. So there'll be a little bit more detail on that. I've spoke to the man. There's been them pictures in Eastfield, which if I get through Wilsthorpe, I'll show you them pictures from Eastfield, which I said I couldn't show the other week, and see what you guys think. Is the hotels? Let's have a look. I think we've just about covered it. So Wilsthorpe, 2009. And before we get to the actual event, we need to jump back to earlier in the year, because I knew nothing about the Wilsthorpe incident till probably, I don't know, when I started writing the first book, Truth Proof 1. And it started here. I'll just put this picture up. You're not going to get any great revelations with this picture. But the newspaper put this in. They wanted, they put a little article in for me, and I was wanting information. There's a little bit more to the article, but I've just clipped it there, about strange and unusual things. But in particular, I was looking at this report of the dark object that landed on the surface of the sea back in 1998. Incredibly, this kind of links to the Hummingbee incident, but I knew nothing about Wilsthorpe then. But thanks to putting this article in, although we'll just do this a moment. 1998, June, fishermen, I think there were 2 fishermen, trawlermen local to area, saw a large dark object drop from the sky. We know we're doing 2009, but let's just do this. Drop from the sky, land on the surface of the sea about 6 miles out. They were there for a while. They rang Coast Guard. Coast Guard rang or contacted Lifeboat. Lifeboat went out to investigate. There's nothing there. This is not normal, is it? A large dark object drops from the sky. They watched it, and they watched it land on the surface. So where did it go? We've got to assume it went below the surface. So I got that little article put in the paper, and we're also saying that I'm writing the book, and I wanted stories. So I was contacted then by an old couple, and they contacted me, said that they lived at Wilsthorpe, and they couldn't remember the date. Back in the day, they said that they'd witnessed a circle of UFOs, small objects, boomerang-shaped objects over the sea in front of their home. And I'll show you a picture of their, no, I won't show you a picture because I haven't loaded it up, but there's their home and where they live in these flats. I think there's 16 flats in blocks of 4. The garden, literally, you walk to the bottom of the garden, you can throw a stone into the sea, and then there's nothing either side of these flats. So interesting in itself that they told me this information. I'm not sure at year. I think it was 2014, 2015. So you can see I knew very little about Wilsthorpe. So June and Ron told me about that. And then back in 2013, I had another website called ILF UFO, Intelligent Light Forms. Just for reference, I've just showed a little bit of the page there. I closed it down in 2013, so 13 years ago, sort of thing, or whatever. But that's just a picture of the website. But the Wilsthorpe incident had already begun because with the build-up of UFO activity throughout the year. So the sightings continued. And in May, Driffield became, which is probably 15 miles from my home, became quite prolific for UFO type sightings, particularly on Riverhead and where there's a large mast. For some reason, it were attracting this red circular object, which I added to the website back in the day. So what we've got there is I think you can see red UFO, Driffield, 16th at 5th, 09. And it had been seen by a few people living in area, there's a picture, a large sort of, I don't know, it's not circular, is it? A strange shaped object near to the head of the mast at Riverside. So there you go, that's at Driffield. So where are we going with this now? So let's have a look. So following on from that, but remember I knew nothing about the main event, we got sightings at Primrose Valley, which probably from Driffield would be about 22 miles. And it involved a driver sat in his carriage, driven to the area of Primrose Valley, parked up, and as he's driving along, he's already before he parks up, he's seen what he described as a pink to red glowing flying saucer. So, and bear in mind, people, these reports are not, how can I say, they're not just coming out of my mouth as regards people have told me and I'm relaying it and there's no paper trail. Anybody who wants to spend some time, like I did, and I've contacted a lot of these people since, go into the archive, in the library at Bridlington, go into the archive in the library, go and get on the microfilm machines at Scarborough, and you'll find these newspaper reports. So, for anybody that says, well, he's probably just made a list of a paper trail here and these things don't exist. They do. Them newspapers reports are there. So I've done you a favour, really, Anta. Let's just put that back up. If anybody that didn't believe me, 16th at 5th, 09, you'll find that in, I'm not sure which paper that one's in. It might be in Bridlington Free Press, that one, but they're there. It's up to you to go hunting for them rather than tell me that I'm making them up, which is what happens at times. 16th, so we got the sphere, we've got the flying saucer, the pink to red flying saucer in May, Flamborough, seen over Flamborough Head. Now, there's no surprise there, is there? Let me just check I've got no questions because I'm rambling on here, people. Yeah, did you notice anybody walking? Right, let's just let's have a look. We'll do that one in a minute, Christopher, because I want to get through this. Might only take us an hour and we can address questions, but I want to get through this, or as much as I can. So Primrose Valley, looking towards Flamborough, we've got this flying saucer. We've got the spheres of light, the red spheres, close to Riverside near the mast at Driffield. That was seen on the 16th of May. It was also seen by another witness on the 19th of May. During this time, bear in mind, I'm not chasing these reports. It's only when I'm in archive I've discovered that 2009, and due to the reports that are coming in to myself, there's a wealth of reports. I'm spending lots and lots of time with Steve Ashbridge on the East Yorkshire Wolds, which is not far from any of these locations. It's not far from Bridlington, not far from Driffield, and I'm on the Wolds with Steve. We've got the farmer at Staxton Wold with his cameras on cams, moving all the time, observing the area, looking over to where we were, because we were spending time around a place called Cotton. A lot of time spent at Cotton because it's an amazing vantage point. You can see Staxton Wold. You can see you could see before it changed the Flamborough Lighthouse before they changed that light that's in it. But, and you could see Driffield and Hull in the distance. So a brilliant 360. And we were documenting lots and lots of unusual aerial activity in the form of what we've called the ILFs, the intelligent light forms. And there is an intelligence, there's an awareness to these. We're not talking about some kind of flare that's been dropped and we're kind of misguided. These are lights, as I've said many times, that will just appear as one, punch into a multiple, disappear and appear in a different part of the sky. Really interesting. And when you try to get a camera on them, they switch off. So that was interesting. We're documenting that. Then on the 25th of May, so all this is May 2009, a guy called Alan Norrie, and Alan's unfortunately passed away now, but a great guy. Alan Norrie was in his kitchen late evening. I'm not sure if it was just after 12 or just before 12, at the kitchen sink. And let's assume he's washing up. I don't know what he's doing, but he's at the kitchen sink and he's got a long garden. I know, because I've been in the garden. I spoke to Alan, or I did speak to Alan at length about this. And as he's looking down his garden, and all in darkness, he can see two lights. Just two lights moving about the size of dustbin lids, and they're moving about in his garden. And just no beam of light, just these lights moving about in his garden. What do? We're inquisitive, aren't we? We kind of think, what could that be? So opens the back door, looks at them for a moment, then walks down the garden. The lights go off. Alan looks up and sees the two lights in the sky, but there's no beam, there's nothing on the grass anymore. And they move away. They sort of move. I think they move towards Woldgate, the Wolds. Woldgate kind of is the barrier, the bridge between the town and the actual East Yorkshire Wolds, Woldgate Crossroads, which I've talked about many times before. It's ages since I talked about Wilsthorpe, so I can't say with 100% certainty, but I think that object, or if it was one object or two objects, was also seen by Peter Masters. Peter, who does electronics for us, and that's how me and Pete became friends, basically, because he reported seeing it. So it's ages since this, and I don't really talk about Wilsthorpe with I don't know, any great detail these days, because there's just that much stuff pouring into my head. Okay, we're moving from May, and we're off now into June, and once again we're in Driffield, so we're not far away from Bridlington. We're only 15 miles away, and once again near the river, near Riverhead, near the mast. And I've got paper clippings for all of this, but it would have just filled this little section that I can put photographs in up completely. What the witness described, a 20 meter, because it was really low down, looking like a hot air balloon, no basket on it, not flaming, so we're not going to confuse it with a Chinese lantern, just a glowing globe of I don't know, like fiery red and oranges, 20 meter sphere in Driffield. I think if the man's confident enough to say it looked about 20 meters, I think we know that he's not seen a Chinese lantern. So that were interesting. And all this activity centered around Driffield, and I knew nothing about what were about to happen as we moved through here at Wilsthorpe. Wilsthorpe may not even have been the epicenter, but as far as I'm concerned, what they saw and experienced were incredible. So let's have a look. Yep. June. So that was June the 9th. June the 12th, the Scarborough Evening News. So once again, anybody sufficiently interested, that's another reason I'm not putting all paper clippings up, because I'm not doing this job not for you guys. You guys have given me great support, but there's loads of toy researchers out there that'll watch me sit in an archive for years, which is what I've done, and then just think, oh, I've got that. I know that bit of information. I'm not doing it. So let's have a look. Where were I? Yeah, Scarborough Evening News, June the 12th, Scarborough Evening News. A triangular object, once again seen by a motorist. He parked up to look at this triangular object, and black triangle. Where did he see it? He's not in Scarborough, but the Scarborough Evening News reported it. And he's close to Filey, and he's watching it travelling along the side of, it says Flamborough, but it's going to be Speeton and Bempton Cliffs. That's just the newspaper. You wouldn't see, people often confuse this and say Flamborough Head, it was seen at Flamborough Head, but the first things you're going to encounter if you're on that road, is Speeton and Bempton Cliffs. So that's not a nighttime sighting, that's a daytime sighting of a triangle. Do you know, guys, in the past, I've had loads of reports of triangular objects below the cliffs. You know, I got one a few years ago when I were looking into the things that were happening around what we'll call Cliff Lane, which is the road. I centered it around Cliff Lane, which is the road up to Bempton Cliffs, simply because a lot of the reports were either side of it, you know, within a few miles of it. So, you know, I just call it Cliff Lane. I think I went to a conference and talked about that report by not this one, by a lady dog walker. I can't remember the year of that. And there's all these little inlets, and as she's walking along the cliff and the sort of running parallel, then there's an inlet, a triangle, sort of not flew into the inlet, but flew past, giving her a vantage point to see it. It's fascinating, isn't it? What's the attraction? Where are they coming from? Where are they going? That's what I would want to say. I'm sorry if there's questions here, guys, but I do want to get through some of this. And I can see that there is questions here, but apologies if I don't get to your question. Oh, good God. Yeah, one sec, guys. Let me just have a quick look. I need to go right. Let me go down and sort of hover over something. You'll be getting sick of me, guys, because I like to... I'm good at talking, aren't I? But I like to... I just want to give you your value for money when it comes to the Wilsthorpe incident. So, June 12th, triangle seen moving along Flamborough Cliffs. Then, let's just get to this. We'll move to July the 1st. And there's a fisherman fishing out of Bridlington Harbour, who I know very well. And he's I don't know, 5 or 6 miles out. And they see a red object low in the sky go straight over the top of the boat. He described it as looking like a pencil, a red pencil. And it's glowing, it's silent. It's being pursued by a jet. Now, I've got the recording of this. I'm sorry, guys, I'm just not putting it on. Anybody who heard me talking about it at that conference will know I've put the recording on. And there'll be people in here, because I see Al Durham's in. He'll remember me on about this. Beer Monsters in, Disabled Welshman. Let's have a look. Zenscape's in. Yeah, all good. Thanks for... let's have a look. Rad and Tony. Jackish. So let's just have a think about this. This has been pursued by a jet aircraft. It's on its tail, he says, and this thing then just turned and just went straight up and just left the jet standing. Once again, you've only my word for it, but I've got the recording of this guy. The other parts that I'm talking about to do with what I've just spoken about, most of them are newspaper reports. So either everybody in 2009, in May, June, July, and August, are all misguided and telling fibs, or there's some reality to what I'm saying. So let's have a look. Three red spheres. Let's have a look. So that was July the 1st. Then we jumped to July the 3rd. July the 1st was over Bridlington. July the 3rd, we've got red spheres seen. And I think this one made the Scarborough Evening News, yeah. Over Scarborough Bay, over the bay. South Bay, it says. So we've got spheres of red light seen over South Bay. I mean, this is good. This is really, really interesting, guys. Tell you why it's interesting. I spent years in those archives looking for things of a strange and unusual nature. And do you know, it's absolutely a thankless task, because you can start on December's paper and work all the way through to the next year. And you might get one report. Some years you might get nothing. But this, 2009, there's just a flurry of reports of strangeness, which makes 2009 and probably 1998 unprecedented in regards to the reports that were coming in. So red spheres seen over South Bay, reported in Scarborough Evening News. So we're in July, that's the 3rd. Well, let's go to July the 18th, and then we go to Oliver's Mount, which is one of the high points in Scarborough. I think it's about 500 feet above sea level. And Scarborough Evening News once again, and they report spheres of light, strange spheres of light over Oliver's Mount, groups of lights that are moving about and merging and becoming one and then splitting up. So another interesting one. That's not very, that's not far away from South Bay in Scarborough, and we're still in the same month. We'll jump from July 18th to July 25th, and we'll jump to Brands Burton. which is a little village on the Wolds, which is not far from here. And a lady contacted me to say that she'd seen some lights. Now, remember, I closed my website in 2013. I think I started it in 2002, 2004, and called it Intelligent Light Forms. That's why I know when somebody wrote a book and started saying that they'd coined the phrase Intelligent Light Forms in 2011, it stole it off me. Sorry for saying that, but it's true. But anyway, let's go to the website. And I've kind of reported that back in 2009. Tell you about something I saw last night in Bransburton. Two friends were driving home in Bransburton late, 10:30 p.m. They saw when they saw 7 orange lights in the sky traveling towards them in formation. I got to speak to the people. They came back to tell us when they saw them there was only 3 lights stationary. So never seen anything like it. And back then, obviously, it says I never got to talk to the lady. There's a lot of water gone under the bridge since then. So that's just stayed. I just grabbed some frame grabs of that before the website, just disappeared into internet land. I don't think you could get these bits of reports now, but 25th at 7th, 2009. So you can see it's really, really active. So where are we going with that? Let's have a look. Oliver's Mount. Yeah. So we're in July 25th. Then we stay in, let's just get this right, July 25th. So we've got these lights that are seen, but then I got another report from the newspaper, this one from Bridlington Free Press. And back in the day, they used to give enough information to be able to trace somebody. Now you can't. And that's why I won't put the clippings up at half at time. But I traced this man. He were happy to talk to me. I went respectfully and he did a little sketch of what he'd seen. But on the same day, this gentleman, let's have a look. Let's just get this. This is what it's no great shakes, the drawing, but that's what he said he saw. And Burton Fleming's just a little village in the middle of nowhere. And he said he saw that flying above his home very, very slowly. The shape of those lights, almost in a cross, really, isn't it? It's strange. And they were all like amber lights and it was low. He's keen to stress that this was low. So now that's not the date of the sighting. That's the date he did it for me. So you can see when I was looking into this. Let's have a look. Here we go. I hope I'm not boring you guys too much so far. But I'm just trying to show you how prolific, how active this area was. But let's jump to a question. I'll have to remember I got to David Allroyd. Let's have a look. Paul, he's Rod. Paul, these strange radar type vehicles from TP4, has there been anything else similar seen since? I know it don't apply to Wilsthorpe, this guy's, or does it? Yeah, they have been seen since, and my knowledge is that they're from Germany, but I've no pictures of them. I've no more knowledge than people have reported seeing these vehicles again, and in area. To be honest with you, Rod, I'd have to look into it with a little bit more detail to give you some specifics of roughly whereabouts in area, even if that's important. But thank you. I'll just go down a little bit, guys, and I know that you're probably waiting for more of this Wilsthorpe stuff. In fact, I'll do it. Let's have a look. So David Allroyd. Right, so we got that was July 25th. I'm going to have to jump back now to July 20th. I don't know why I've done it like that. Probably because that's how I found it in archive. So this will have been in Scarborough Evening News, and definitely in Scarborough Evening News, so they can be traced. And there's a car that's parallel in a silver sphere. Treetops, and it's on the A165. So that's between Bridlington and Scarborough. It passed in front of his car, this sphere. I mean, he were bold enough and confident enough to report this to the newspaper. So a shiny, bright, shiny silver sphere. It's incredible, isn't it? All this activity, a pink to red UFO, a 20-meter in diameter sphere of fiery orange light at Riverside, a cross at Burton Fleming. Do you know, I bet there's some people out there wish that it was just me saying this with nothing to back it up. But I'm pointing everybody in direction at newspapers. If you want to go and find it, it's there. And I've written about it as well. So anyway, so that's that. Passed in front of his car. So that's July the 20th. We'll stay with July the 20th. Same paper. This is how interesting it is. South Bay. So we've already done red spheres seen in South Bay at Scarborough. When was that? Let's have a look. July the 3rd, red spheres seen in Scarborough in South Bay. We stay with South Bay, but it gets even more bizarre. The shape and an egg-shaped craft with blue sides. South Bay, close, not far from the castle, you know, the old ruins of the castle at Scarborough. It's fascinating, isn't it? And that one's a daylight sighting. The treetop silver sphere is a daylight sighting. So they're not all nighttime sightings. You know, honestly, people, have you ever heard of anything more prolific when it comes to UFO reports than this? Excuse me, because I haven't. I really haven't. So that's the 20th of July. Now we go to the 31st of July, and we've already touched on Oliver's Mount, which is the 500 foot above sea level, you know, just on the outskirts of Scarborough. Oliver's Mount, once again, a black cloud was seen at Oliver's Mount. So you're going to be thinking to yourself, black cloud? There's loads of black clouds out there. But this, as the witness described it, as having almost like fairy lights all the way around it that were twinkling and sparkling. That's not normal, is it? I suppose we could conclude that there's something within the cloud. You know, that's possible, isn't it? That's more than possible. There's something within the cloud itself, but we don't know, do we? And we're never going to know. But that's interesting. So where am I going with this now? Let's just keep rolling on. So we're slipping into August now, August the 4th. I met this guy, great guy, came to my home. We had a few hours talk. Then I met him where he'd seen it. And you might have heard me talk about this before. And it's a guy called Barry Lyles, and he'd come on holiday with his wife. This is July the 4th. He was staying close to Hummonby. We all know about the Hummonby incident. He's staying close to Hummonby. And on this particular night or evening, he'd gone with his wife into Filey for a meal. I think he'd gone for a Chinese. Taxi into Filey, taxi back. On the way back, he's sat in the front. The taxi driver's obviously there, wife in the back. They get to the junction before they take a right, I think it is, to where they were staying. And Barry's initial thoughts were that there were an owl flying towards him. And it's exactly what he said. He thought an owl were coming towards me, kind of winced and ducked. The taxi driver saw it as well, and then they realised that they were looking at a huge craft. Now, I've got a little bit of a recording of Barry. I'll play it twice. I'm probably not going to get to hear you guys, so you can't understand him. He's from Barnsley, is Barry. A bit like Clifftop Pete, but I understand everybody from Barnsley, so you guys are going to have to do it as well. So let's listen to Barry. There's only a few seconds.
We're coming home. It was crystal clear night, about 11 o'clock, weren't it, Linda? And we got to this point, and I just saw, like there, which is about where that tree is. First reaction was, oh, it's a barn owl, that. And then I thought, no. I can't even put a time scale on how long we sat looking at it. It must have been minutes. But I think we were both gobsmacked. It's indelible in my mind what I saw. It's there forever. Could see it over that building, and it must have been lit from underneath, and it was really white and shiny.
So you heard Barry talking about that. And if you're watching this, Barry, because I've not spoke to you in years, I hope you're well, mate, and be good to have a catch up. So basically, originally he thought it were an owl, and when he says we couldn't believe what we were seeing, his wife's in back. She only caught the tail end of it. The taxi driver's seeing this, and they're seeing what he described as looking like the hull of a ship. I'm on about a boat, not some spaceship. They knew it weren't a boat. And it's there, all glistening and almost like there's light running through it. I think you said it had a light at both sides, big circular light at both sides. And it passed over the road and over the pub. And there's a courtyard at the side of the pub. And it lit the underside up. And in Barry's own words, he could have got a barge pole, a long wooden pole, say, and he believes he could have touched it. That's how low it was. So the taxi driver got Barry back to where he was staying and then wouldn't drive back. And somebody else had to come and drive back with them. Another vehicle came because it frightened them that much. I never got to speak to taxi driver. So I know you're out there somewhere and you probably don't want to speak, but that's the effect this has on some people. And it's strange, isn't it? Because some people are left awe-inspired. And like Barry just said, I'll never forget it. It's indelible in my mind, as in actually etched into his mind what he saw. Other people become absolutely terrified. Is that just the makeup of the person? I'm not so sure it is, you know. Could be in some instances, but let me just give you a brief example, and I'll use Linear's example. When and you'll hear me banging on about this light visitation forever because it were that good, but when we experienced that last year, we all felt absolutely elated. We knew we'd been in the presence of something that felt really, really good, very special. Then this year, I'm not going to say how long since, probably 2 months since, one light flashed up on the side of the cliff that none of us saw but Ian. It frightened him. That's no slant on Ian. That kind of makes him the person that he is. That he's not frightened to say that frightened me, and I'd say exactly the same. There's no bravado here. That's how it made him feel. So, where am I going with this? Barry felt awe-inspired when he saw this object. The taxi driver was terrified. Is the phenomena able to? Only saying is it able to sort of influence how we feel about these things? I don't know, guys. What do you think? You know, it could be. I'm looking at this. Barry Lyles, let's have a look. Okay, that were August the 4th. Let's jump forward 20 days to August the 24th. And once again, Scarborough Evening News reports huge fireballs above Scarborough Castle. Fireballs. Could they have been mistaken? Could these have been Chinese lanterns? You know, not everything's unexplained phenomena, but when somebody describes an egg-shaped craft with blue sides, you know, and then we've got this 20-meter sphere, and we've got the lights at Bransburton, and we've got the cross. Something strange about 2009, isn't it? Let's face it. And these are only the reports that I've managed to collect. How many more are out there? How many more people are sat there thinking, good God, yeah, I saw something in 2009. Never said a word about it. I mean, I know there were things seen which had a very frightening effect on people, the people involved at a place called Garton on the Wolds. Once again, on the Wolds. And Garton on the Wolds is literally 2 miles from Driffield, where all of that stuff were being seen. The objects that were seen, or the object that was seen at Garton on the Wolds was seen over a number of days. And the people who were observing it became terrified because they were observing it, and in the end, it was observing them. Maybe go into that one at some stage. You know, sometimes you've got to be careful talking about these things because you kind of rekindle the event for the people involved. And as much as some people might think that all of this is a load of rubbish, for the people who've seen, the people who've experienced, it's very real. And, you know, and sometimes some of these things aren't nice. So let's have a look. Right, that was 24th of August, fireballs above Scarborough Castle. 30th of August, once again, I think this might have been in Bridlington Free Press. An oval-shaped object seen above Caton Bay. So we're midpoint. We're between Scarborough and we're between Bridlington, but we're very close to the epicentre of all of this strangeness. And we've got one common denominator here, and everything's close to the North Sea, isn't it? You know, we're not far. We're literally within a stone's throw of the North Sea, which is fascinating because we kind of always, or I'm always thinking, what is the potential for something to be existing out of sight, out of reach, in the depths of not necessarily the North Sea, of the oceans of the world? If these things can literally fly and outpace jets in seconds, just acceleration that just starts from 0 to max, and they've gone. You talk about people seeing these objects at times. I'll never forget the guy at the farm in Wilsthorpe when I was talking to him, and he's looking at this huge object. He said, and within a second, it was just a pinprick. It was just a dot of white light as it went away. Well, people talk about these objects being able to travel as fast below the surface as above the surface. So when I say that these things, the potential for them to be subsurface, the sub-universe, it doesn't mean that they're actually below Bempton or Speeton Cliffs, does it? but there might be a good reason why things have been seen there. So, all right, let's just carry on. August 30th. So we're doing well with August. We've got Barry Lyles. We've got on the 4th, 24th, the fireballs. At 30th of August, oval-shaped object. Then the 30th of August again. Retired fisherman sees a row of 6 red lights off Flamborough Head. It's fascinating. And I'll tell you what, it's even more interesting for us, who, the team of guys that spend, and ladies that spend time up at Speeton, Bempton, Flamborough, because we don't often see red lights. And that's what this is saying, red lights. What we are seeing a lot of are amber, but it's still fascinating. So where are we? So that was the 30th of August. And then the 30th of August, remember, I knew nothing, 100% nothing about Wilsthorpe. And I'm in my back garden, 30th of August. And I'm not saying that this were targeted at me, but I'm the only person documenting this. I'm putting all these reports on the Truth Proof website. Back in the day, they're going on. I'm actively out on the wolds, and I've always got a camera handy. And at that particular time, I had the Sony VX 2100, which no great camera now, but I'd got this camera. I don't sit there holding it. I've probably just sat in sun. I was taken back a bit. Suddenly, I've gone into the kitchen for something. I can hear helicopters, and I come outside and look up, and there's 2 helicopters, and they're not just turning above my home. We're in a busy town, but they're there. They've got the back door down and the side door open, and they do a few sweeps just above our home. I managed to get a little bit of them on film. I'll just play you this, guys. There is more, but I'm not going to bore you with it all. So, and there's a noise at end. I don't know if I put it in, but there's like a clattering because I fell over some steps. So there you go. Let's play this. Let's just get rid of that. So I can assure you that that's above our home. What does it mean? Probably nothing. But I found it fascinating and there were loads and loads of aircraft activity, which I'd loaded up earlier to show you guys, but I don't know whether it's worth it. AWACS, obviously they're well up. Lots and lots of different drones, all sorts of aircraft activity. Is it military exercises? Who can say? There's a good chance that some of it or a lot of it is. But I found that one fascinating, so I thought I'd add that. We've gone from August, 30th of August. Then there were another mystery helicopter. I don't have the date of this one, but something tells me that we're still in August. I couldn't find date of it today, if I'm being truthful. But it's in the Scarborough Evening News, and lots and lots of residents who lived close to the castle. And remember that South Bay, we'd got the spheres of light, we'd got the egg-shaped object with the blue sides reported to the newspaper, all close to the castle. Lots of residents close to Scarborough Castle, which is literally just a ruin up on a hillside, were brought out of their homes during the night in the early hours of the morning, and people were stood on the street because it's loud, looking at a large helicopter beaming a light down into the castle, and it was there for ages. Nobody held their hand up to say whose this helicopter was or why it should have been there. Excuse me. Do you think this could have been UFO related? Of course, we can't say. So chances are it weren't. But if it were mundane and if it were explainable, you would think that the Coast Guard would say, yeah, that were us. We were doing some kind of exercise. Or if it were military, but nobody came forward. Is that just Paul saying it? No, it isn't. That's what the papers are saying. And that's where that report came from. And the report simply said mystery helicopter. And as I say, it brought a lot of people out onto the street looking because nobody could understand what it was doing. Because these are literally ruins on top of an old hill and there's a searchlight beaming down. So it's looking for something. So I found that one fascinating. So we're slipping into August. I hope I'm not boring you guys too much. And I've talked about the drones, the AWACS, the fighter jets, all around area. Obviously, Scarborough Castle. Right, end of August, Fraysthorpe. I've talked about this one before. So we're getting close to Wilsthorpe. Wilsthorpe, Fraysthorpe. And Fraysthorpe, as you're coming round the bend from a place called Barmston, and I know some of you guys will know where this is, some of you won't. There's a police officer, PCSO actually, driving down from Barmston towards Fraysthorpe, and then he would come towards Wilsthorpe. Reports seen a large dark object passing over his car, over the police car. Everything cut out. Radio silence. Everything stopped. This thing, as it passed over the car, the radio crackled, went out to sea, started again. I'm not sure whether he started the car and it cut the engine, or whether everything just dipped momentarily and started again. So that one were reported, and let's have a look. It just says end of August. Then, I've never stopped here with this, have I? And we've nearly done an hour. I just wanted to get it out, guys, because I was conscious if I start on your questions, we might not finish this, and then you're kind of left thinking, well, where did it end? Where did it go? So we'll carry on with this. I dare say I'm going to miss some questions. So we just talked about Peter Masters and seeing those lights that Alan Norris saw months and months prior. So Peter Masters, he'd got an interest in this, and we went because of the input, as in the influx of UFO reports. I was spending a lot of time on the Wolds, quite a bit of time at Waldgate, and Pete Masters came up with me one particular night. I don't know if he's in chat. If you are, Pete, just tell him, back me up. So we're up at Waldgate. It's very misty, and when we got up there, we realised it weren't really conducive with trying to spot anything. So we decided to drive back. As we drove off the Waldgate crossroads, a car was behind us. There's really thick fog, not a lot of cars on road, and this car drove behind us. Drove down Waldgate, drove into Bridlington town, and then went up what's called Kingsgate, and then headed towards Wilsthorpe. This car's following us all the way. There's a lay-by at the back of the flats at Wilsthorpe, and when I say a lay-by, there's a burger van there in summer. And there's nothing there. There's no houses. There's no properties. It's just somewhere for people to stop, wagons to stop and things. I decided to pull into that lay-by. But in between that lay-by, there's two bungalows, spaced probably 1/4 of a mile apart. So they're the only drives that are there. Because it was so foggy, I pulled into the drive of one of these bungalows. And it's not just a drive with a set of gates on. There's a lot of greenery. There's a long stretch up to it, so it's easy to make a mistake. So I pulled in. Instantly realised I'd not took the turn off into this little lay-by. Stopped the van, put it into reverse, and when I looked, the car that had followed me off the Wolds were parked up at the back. Not behind me, to not followed me into this drive, but it were parked on the road, which is odd. Why would it do that? Why do you think it would do that? So I reversed, drove another, 500 yards, turned into the lay-by, and the car carried on going. Could be pure coincidence. I just found that odd that it stopped behind me when I pulled into that lay-by. When we get into the lay-by, guys, there's two vans parked up. Police scientific investigation vans. That's what it said on the sides of them. I don't know whether they both got a big half football on the top, which I assumed was a camera. It was all black. Or not, I'm not sure. I got out of the car because we weren't breaking no laws, and just sort of walked, looking over the fields to where Wilsthorpe would be, but I can't see it in the night. But I'm more curious to see if there's anybody in vans. No, nobody in vans. That were interesting. So me and Pete, we know nothing about what we've termed the Wilsthorpe incident at that time. How could we? It had not happened, but we knew nothing. We were just gathering information. So jumps in the car. Fruitless night, pretty pointless. I mean, I've documented on my website about the police scientific investigation vans. I even contacted Gary Heseltine because I know he runs the police UFO database, or he did back then. I don't know if he does now. So we documented that. That's all well and good. So where are we going now? End of August, PCSO, scientific. Right. We just talked about Barmston, which you can literally see from Barmston Village, Wilsthorpe. So that's how close these places are. So you've got Barmston, Fraysthorpe and Wilsthorpe, and they're all close. They're all within walking distance. They're all within 30 minutes of each other, 45 minutes on foot. And there's a lady called Eileen Hobson. Met Eileen many, many times. Unfortunately, she's not with us now, Eileen, bless her. But she contacted me to say she'd seen something. Let's have a look if we've got a date. No, we don't. But I'm assuming this is August. And she contacted me to say that she'd seen something very unusual. So I went to a bungalow, got talking to Steve Ashbridge, came with me. And her bungalow looks onto fields. If you look from the bedroom windows, you can look and you can see in the night, there's the roundabout at Wilsthorpe that's got a circular light on it. There's nothing in between. There's just this roundabout's lit up. She said that she got up during the night and she went to use the bathroom. She's looking onto fields. There's no frosted glass. There's no curtains up. There's nobody looking in, we assume. It's just a bungalow with like a dormer on it, so she is upstairs. Dormer bungalow, cottage, if you like. And she's looking down towards the fields and she can see, not the roundabout, don't forget she'd lived there many years. It's like the people who say, oh, you might be mistaken with this or that, telling people who've lived there years and years that they've seen something that's a local landmark. She's used to seeing the roundabout. She can see a large circle of gold light. She said they look like pearls. She said they were over Wilsthorpe. I've got a date for that. I wish I'd got a date for that, guys, and I will have somewhere. And she watched them. And she went into the bedroom, woke her husband up, Eddie. He weren't interested. He actually said to her, you'll be looking at roundabout. You've not seen that. She's adamant she weren't. She could see the roundabout. When she went to bed, sort of settled down, it unnerved her that much. She got back up and had another look. Then she became frightened, extremely frightened, because in her words, she said she thought they were watching her. So we've got this intermind connection, guys. Is it paranoia? What would you call it? I don't know. She's looking at these things and at least a mile away, huge circle of what she called pearls. They look like pearls, like a luster to them. And she believes that they were watching her. She's watching them. They're watching her. She went back to bed, unsettled all night. So Eileen had seen that. So then we're getting close to what we've termed the Wilsthorpe incident. And I'm glad I haven't stopped, guys, because, I can see there's 8 minutes. We're nearly into an hour. And I was doing a bit of digging, talking to fishermen, talking to other people. And I found out that some of the guys who dig bait for local fishermen, for rock anglers and beach anglers, they fish with obviously the bait that the fish like to eat. There's guys who are bait diggers. They do it for a living. And Wilsthorpe's a good place to dig bait. The long, shallow sort of beach. And there's lots of these lugworms and different fish, food that fish eat. And the bait diggers claimed that they'd seen a triangle enter the sea off Wilsthorpe, not far out as well. So that's interesting in itself. So the bait diggers had seen a triangle enter the sea. Right, where we're going? We need to get this now. I need to start jumping into. Right, we're here. We're at the old couple's story. So I'd put that in, if you remember. Let's just put that back up. Author needs help with the unusual. Okay. So we've gone all the way through the year. So I put that in, and that's gone in, I don't know, when I started writing Truth Proof 1. And I get contacted by an elderly couple, Ron and June, who lived at Wilsthorpe. And they tell me that they'd seen, their words, spaceships over the sea. They couldn't remember the year. They just, for the life of them, they couldn't remember the year. But we'll get to that in a minute, how I found the year. So I went and spoke to them on more than one occasion. I don't know, 10 times. And basically, I wish I'd got pictures up for you now, guys, but I've told you about the garden. You can walk to the bottom of their garden, and at high tide, if you're good at throwing, you can throw a stone into the sea. So they're in blocks of 4, these flats, and they're in a ground floor flat. And there's a communal light outside that anybody can use from any of the flats. Or I would think the 2 downstairs ones, maybe, I don't know. But there's the other flat, people in the flats connected can use it. So when I went to their flat, and spoke to them, there's binoculars on the window ledge. They've lived there many, many years. This is what I'm going with. This is they're familiar with what's out at sea. They're familiar with different aircraft. They're familiar with helicopters, all sorts of things, because that's where they live. That's why I know they weren't mistaken about what they saw. So she said, we'll get to date in a moment, guys. She said on this particular night, it's getting late. I think it's something like 10 to 11. Said to her husband, now, are we going to turn in? Are we going to bed? Yeah, we'll go to bed. Her husband goes to bedroom. She goes to turn the room light off and then realizes that there's a glow outside. Opens the porch door because she thinks the next door have left this outside light on that aids them all. Turned it off. It's already off. She can't understand it. There was a bit of a glow. But anyway, she just thinks, oh, well, it's illuminated, and goes to step inside. As she goes to step back into the living room, she said a voice in her head said, go back and have another look. This is a lady in her late 70s, early 80s, with no other stories about UFOs, and they've lived there many, many years, decades, in fact. And obviously, light bulb moment in her head, because it's not her thoughts. There's a voice. She goes back and looks, and she says, and when I looked, I thought, oh my God. And I'm looking, and I look out to sea, and the tide must have been high, but it's not way out to sea. This is on the beach where the bait diggers would have been digging. She says, and there's a huge circle of glowing blue to white boomerang shaped objects over the sea. Didn't count them, didn't have a camera, didn't take pictures. So shouts her husband. He comes running through. She's amazed. She's in awe of what she's looking at. He's looking at them for a few minutes, and he'd seen enough. He was frightened to death. And his words to me was, he says, I went back to bed. I put my head under the pillow, and I didn't want to surface until daylight. Something just frightened him. And I said to June, I said, well, what about you? She said, no, I know, or I knew I was never, ever going to see anything as spectacular ever again in my life. I'm never going to see anything like this again in my life. Just before we get to it, a little bit more detail, he said that it looked like a Christmas tree, as in, there's a circle of them, he says, but it was just so illuminated, and there was lightning, in his words, going down into the sea, and it looked like a pan of boiling water below in this circle. Bearing in mind, we'll get to depth at sea there as well in a moment. So he's gone to bed. He's terrified. Let's assume this is between 10 to 11 and 11. She said, and they're in this circle. She watched them then till just before midnight or just after midnight. I've got all these details. I've not talked about Wilsthorpe for years, not in any detail. And there's a lot more detail if I really wanted to do that. But I think we've got enough for you guys tonight, don't you? So she said, some period during this hour, two of them moved away from, say, 45 degrees and just disappeared, and the circle closed. And this continued up until about midnight, or just after midnight, till there's just two left. And then they just zipped away and they'd gone. So that's the gist of what this old couple saw. Now, as I said, there's 16 flats. Many, there's only 16, but most of those 16 flats are holiday homes. So there's nobody in them. I actually know the guy who lived next door to them. Just ironic, really, isn't it? And he saw nothing, but he remembers back in the day, 2009, he remembers her telling him all about it the next day. And I spoke to that guy, Mick. I've spoke to him many times. Mick didn't see anything. Do you know what I mean? I suppose you've got to be looking out of the window to have seen them, or out of your porch, but he didn't see nothing. But most of them flats, most of those 16 flats, holiday accommodation. So then, well, I'm not going to set date yet. I'm going to want to tell you how I found out. But back in the day, there'd have been nobody there unless you actually lived there year round. One sec. So we've got the story. She's told me this story. We haven't got a year. And I'm still working my way through this archive. And believe me, guys, if you go to Bridlington Library, and I've not been in for ages, that they know me. I've done from 1700s right through to present day. You know, that takes a little bit of dedication to sit, going through paper after paper after paper, page after page after page in microfilm. Incidentally, Bridlington stopped archiving them in microfilm, I think 2011. So I might nip down and see if they've done any more, because every time I spoke to them, they're going to do them, but they haven't done. But that's funds, I suppose, and money. So, but anyway, I'm going through the archive, and I'm in 2009. I'm looking. And I find a newspaper article that says visitors catch a glimpse of lynx. So what do I think? Naturally, I'm thinking the big cat report here. Do you know what I mean? That's exactly what I'm thinking. But then when I read it, it says visitors to Bridlington were treated to a rare sight, whatever day, when I think it were 2 lynx helicopters swept up the seafront during the daytime. And I looked at the date, and this is, I think it was September the 15th or the 16th. So I've got the news clippings. So it turns out that the following day, after they've seen these objects, or after this couple allegedly saw these objects, the military arrived. And the Lynx helicopter, or helicopters, and then Chinooks, and then vehicles, as in military vehicles, arrived, and they arrived at the boat compound next to the flats, because there's the Royal Yacht Club there. No disrespect at Royal Yacht Club, by the way, but it's not that exotic. These are catamarans and things, and lads just sail them out during the summer. And there's a porter cabin, a transline porter cabin thing on the cliff tops, where the people at the yacht club all sort of congregate, and I don't know what they do, but whatever they do there. So anyway, and Gemma, who's doing moderating, knows all about that because she spent time there years ago. So the military arrived the next day. So what June actually told me was, and the next day the military arrived. You know, after she's seen these objects, she said, and they spent 2 nights. She says, and you know, during the war they had those big searchlights. She says, and they're just moving along the beach, up and down and over the sea with these lights. Don't know why. And we've got to assume that she's not fabricating a story. Her story tied in. It's got to have been the same night. It's got to have been September the 15th, or the night of September the 15th, because the military arrived the next day and they stayed a few days. I put a freedom information request in and received a response. And basically, they just told me that it were a military exercise. I'm not in a position to say it weren't, am I? You know, I'm not God, am I? Let's face it. But don't you find it fascinating when you've got these reports, and all those reports throughout the year, and then, you know, you put a freedom of information request and it said all explosives and all sounds of gunfire were all simulated. Nobody reported any sounds of gunfire. I think it were a bog standard reply that they put out for things like that. Just like if you'd have put a freedom information request in for a UFO report, you'd get the bog standard, this into national defence importance. Because I'll tell you why I think that. Because Kaz Clark, who looked into the Penturk incident, I saw the freedom information report, or some of it, what she'd got back, and basically it's word for word, it's the same. It's very similar, which is interesting. So in itself, so lots and lots of things. So there's maybe more detail, and I probably could have spent 3 or 4 hours, excuse me, guys, if I'd have wanted to really fill you in on the finer details of each sighting report and put the clippings up as well. But I think that it's took us an hour, hasn't it? It's took us an hour to cover Wilsthorpe, and I dare say there's a lot. There is more. I dare say there's a lot of, let's have a think, questions there that I've missed and not done. But let me just finish with this one, because I've told this before. So I thought that report, the sighting of the objects over the sea, I thought it all sort of climaxed, if you like, and that was the end of the reports. And then a few years later, I got that report from a lady called Carly, who I've met many times, lovely woman, and she were travelling home 2009, but in November, so it were continuing. So if you're out there and you've got any reports from this area or the immediate area, you know, let's see if we can add a little bit more meat to bone to what I'm talking about now, because Carly's report, and some of you guys will remember me talking about this. She contacted me in 2020, so that's how these reports come in. You know, because obviously, when you're in the day, when I'm looking at 2009, documenting it for ILF UFO website, I knew nothing about what had happened in September. You know, I was just going through the year, and suddenly I've got a catalogue of strange events. And Carly didn't contact me while 2020 website had been shut then, 7 years. You know, so she was driving home down the A615, heading towards Bridlington. Ironically, this is November though; it's not September. But it's the same road where I turned off, where the police vehicles were. It's the same road where, if you're travelling along it, on a fine day, you can see the flats at Wilsthorpe. So it's all across fields. You can see all of this. And they noticed, and I've told this recently, but I'm going to do it again because it's relevant to this story. They noticed a red car weaving about in front of them, her and a companion, a workmate. And it was swerving, and it swerved to a stop in the side of the road. They thought they slowed down, and because they didn't want to be in an accident, they thought he were either under influence of alcohol or something, or he were having some kind of episode, you know, a medical episode. And he came to a stop, thinking it was drink or something like that, slowed down. And a passenger suddenly started screaming hysterically, and really, really upset. She looked at her. Then when she looked from her side window, she saw the most incredible thing. She saw two large red lights that were either end of some huge object that she couldn't see the top of, and it's at the other side of the hedge. And she's driving down this road between Barmston, Fraysthorpe and Wilsthorpe, and she can see it. It's only just above the ground, and it's just literally parallel in her car. When they get to the roundabout, the same roundabout that Eileen Hobson said that close to where she saw these lights, this thing stopped, and she saw it, but she still can't remember seeing the top of it, which is odd, isn't it? Turned, shot straight out to sea. Don't you think that's fascinating? Don't you think that's incredible? I do. It travelled. Her friend in the passenger seat became very frightened, and this thing travelled alongside them until they reached the Wilsthorpe roundabout. At this point, the UFO suddenly turned right, rose into the sky, and accelerated out towards the sea. You know, isn't that incredible? Don't you think so? And another thing that's incredible, that the bait diggers saw the triangle enter the sea off the close to the flats at Wilsthorpe. And as the boss of the bait diggers tells me, and I've told you this one before, you can put chest waders on and wade out a long ways. That flat, this beach, you know, on a calm day, you know, and you wouldn't. So where this thing went in doesn't even seem conceivable that it were deep enough for it to go in. So how does that work? You know, and I'm not saying that it weren't a military exercise that were taking place in September. I'm not in a position to say that. But you would think if they were going to conduct a military exercise, they've got miles and miles of beach to the right of them, a few miles of beach or to the left of them. Yet they chose to set up in front of the flats where this old lady and her husband saw this incredible spectacle back in 2009, September. Oh, it's fascinating me. Let's have a look. We've just about done that, people. And I might, shall we have a look at some questions? I hope I've not bored you too much. You've not all gone anyway, so we've managed to hold over 400 people. I'd love to scroll down and look for some questions for Wilsthorpe, so I might not get to them all. I don't know how many there is. The reason I'm not doing is if I do that, I'll get mixed up. So let's just take these as they come. Paul, do you think that the aliens follow your channel in order to understand your position? I don't think they're interested in us, Nathan. I really don't. Seriously, let's just aliens, whatever you want to term them, just alien to what we aren't. Do you think they're interested in me? I don't think so. They're probably no more interested in me than that little dog that I've got, Bobby. I think we overestimate our importance in the grand scheme of all this. And no, I don't think they're interested. I think they're interested if it, I would imagine if it suits them. You know, jumping back to childhood, night people, what I saw in childhood must have been interested in me. Yes, I sound like I'm contradicting myself, don't I? Must have been interested in me. However, for what reason? They were only after some kind of emotional reaction. because all they instilled in me were absolute terror. I was just terrified of what I saw and experienced. Well, they were alien, as in they weren't anything that we could know and understand, but not necessarily from outer space. They could have been what some people could term demons. And we're only wrestling with words here, people, before you jump all over me and say, oh, there's no such thing as demons or aliens. It's just words. You know, in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, somebody will have created another bunch of words for some of this stuff, and we'll think that it's obsolete. You know, I mean, for me, everything we talk about the unexplained phenomena and the objects, I still call them UFOs. But the new is UAP. You know, it's just how it is. Just before we get to that, anybody interested in the Truth Proof books? And I do it every week, don't I? But it's almost embarrassing, but I'm going to do it. Truthproof.uk. You can get all 4 books, or The Night People, which is about my own experiences. So there's 4 of these, slightly different colours. And you can also get the DVD, which myself and Les made, Wolflands. Also available on Amazon. So, you know, it's up to you guys, obviously. But I always say, if anybody purchases a book, not necessarily today, unless it's weekend, it's usually in post the next day. If I printed a label off tonight, actually, just before I come on here. So there we go. Got that little bit out of the way. Oh, one more thing, because there's over 400 people in here. If you've not subscribed, guys, it's totally free. Give us a like and subscribe, please. Just a little bit of support. You've just heard this daft old man, me, talking about Wilsthorpe for the last hour. And never take yourself so seriously as well. That's my motto anyway. None of us do on cliff tops. We're all happy in his own skin kind of thing. So, yeah, give us a like and subscribe, please. And, you know, it just helps us. It helps the channel, and it's just support, just a little bit of support, and it's totally free. Let's go down here a little bit. Beer Monster. There he is. Zero Dawn. We've done this at Nathan. Dave Sable, Welshman, Janice. Let's have a look. There must be more questions, eh? Jem, Sinclair, I know you. Let's have a look. I hope these are proper questions, because I don't read them before I put them up. Paul, when you posted the Trump Files episode the other day, did you notice anybody walking behind you at 20 minutes, 11 seconds? Viewers said it was a person, but it looked like a shadow figure. Loads of people reported seeing that figure. And when I was putting that little film together, I did see it. My gut feeling is, you know, I think I've put it in comments, it could be somebody on a scooter, you know. I love it if we've got proper unexplained phenomena. I really do. But not everything is. And it's great that you guys are noticing things. The one that I'm putting up, and I've not highlighted it, I just noted some in this one. Phantoms of Broxer Forest that I've put together, which will go out Tuesday. I just noticed while we were in the trees a light that moved irregular, and I'm not going to say anything about it. I'll see if anybody else notices it. I'm not even going to say where. Just like that was people are saying shadow figure. Me personally, my gut feeling is that could be somebody on a scooter. You know, everything, it'd be too perfect to get something every time you went out. And to me, you know, I don't think things work like that. But I get what you're saying, Christopher, and keep looking, because there are things that happen that kind of baffle me. You know, last year, I sat in the bottom of Danes Dyke with a little dog, sort of talking away as I do, and a figure walked across the top, and people saw that. And where I was sat, you couldn't have seen road or anything. And that one did puzzle me. But and I didn't see that one at the time, but I did see this one that you're talking about. Let's have a look. I'm glad we got through Wilsthorpe, and I kind of rushed it as well, because I didn't know how long it was going to take. So let's have a look. Paul, my question, if not too personal, do your grandkids still have encounters today, or did it stop? Reading your book, Night People, was heart-wrenching. If you don't want to say anything, I understand. No, I don't mind saying anything. I mean, I can't go into detail, because obviously they might be my girls, but they're not my grandkids. They're not my kids as such. They did report. They didn't report anything. They did tell the mum and dad that strange things were happening. But I can tell you now that the one that we're reporting, it's no memory of it now. You know, And I wouldn't be playing it on any podcast, but Mum and Dad did allow me to record him telling me all about it when he were little. So I've got that kind of, which I find fascinating, because I wonder how many other people, as children, some of you remember, or with children, remember them talking about having conversations and strange experiences. And we've got to be careful here, because it's like you said, if it's too personal, you understand. I won't go any deeper with it, but yeah, doesn't remember now, don't remember any of it. And one of other grandkids not reported to me, told. It's hard not to say reported, almost makes me sound like a school teacher, but talked about some other strange experience, and they happened in periods in people's lives. I might be able to show you something really, really interesting in the next few weeks. I'd need to speak to one at Daughters. I showed lads on cliff tops other night some footage that I've been given that's been taken by one of them, and it's not in sky. It's quite incredible. It really is. But that's as much as I'll say on that, and it's not to do with any members of family. It's just something that they've seen. Right, we'll jump from that to, let's have a look. I might be absolutely wrong here. There might be no questions. Let's have a look. Evening, Paul. What are your thoughts on Foxtrot 894 incident that happened at Flamborough Head, 1970? RAF lightning ditched to sea. Some say under mysterious circumstances. Do you know 5406? It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it could have just been a tragedy. Nobody knows for sure, and I don't think anybody ever will. And and I have looked into that quite extensively, probably a bit more than anybody in the world, if I'll be truthful. I've got all lifeboat logs from all lifeboat agencies, Bridlington, Filey, even Whitby, from the circumstances and the events of that night. All I'll say, I think the transcript that I think Tony Dodd uncovered the transcript, and it was broke by Grimsby Evening Telegraph. I'll not set reporter's name, but he broke it, and I think the transcript were probably fake. A lot of the terminology that pilot were talking back to, I think it were RAF Staxton Wold, talking about seeing the object. It weren't military type terminology. And let me just put my hands up and say I've not got the know-how to talk how these guys would. This is all what I've learnt afterwards. Do I think that there was something highly unusual? I think there's a lot of unusual things. Let's do it like this. There's a lot of unusual things happened around the time that aircraft was lost, such as the RAF Marine launch that I talked about a few weeks ago that were based in Bridlington. I don't know, 2 or 3 boats, I think there were 3. But one of them, it hit or was struck by a submerged object very close to that time frame. We're not talking months, we're talking about days, no more than a week. I can't remember dates, guys. You put me on spot here, but it suffered a 25-foot by 12-inch hole in its hull. There's tear all the way downside, and that to be beached at North Beach. Either just before that or just after that, there were a speedboat, which were off the coast. That struck an unknown submerged object. You see where we're going with this when I talked about it earlier? You look in archives, you go through the microfilm archive, looking for unusual sightings, and I've gone for decades and decades of these. It took years. And sometimes you find nothing. Sometimes you might find one thing or 2 things in a year. It's very unusual to find a group of things in close proximity without kind of raising your eyebrows and thinking, are these things attached? Is there a link here? So the speedboat struck an unknown submerged object. Not long after or not long before that tragedy, and not long after or not long before the RAF Marine launch, that boat disintegrated. That's what the paper says. We know that they make a big thing of it, and it might have just got a big hole in its side. It said the boat disintegrated. The crew, the man sort of driving the speedboat, some of his children and some friends who were on board were clinging to the wreckage. They were picked up by a cabin cruiser called the Glen Rose. So I remember that. The butcher, the former butcher of Flamborough, who was a little boy at the time, told me that a lot of school children, so we've got to assume that adults will have known about this, went to look at where a flying saucer had landed on the cliff tops at Flamborough Head, early September 1970. And he then said that the farmer, I'll not set farmer's name, and I think you guys know that I do know, I'm not saying it because I can't remember, but he was visited by people who asked him to plough out the field and erase traces of it. So does that mean that a UFO were involved in an incident with an aircraft? Of course it doesn't. We've no proof of that, have we? But I find it fascinating nonetheless that these things are there in close, conjunction with the alleged tragedy. And it was a tragedy, let's face it. Like we've never got to lose sight of the fact that someone was lost. And, their families have got to live with that, and if there's no concrete proof that it's UFO related, we can highlight all the strange things that are taking place in, on and around it at the time, but we can't say, yeah, that's UFO related. I think that would be wrong. So that's my thoughts on that one. September 8th, it were lost as well, 5 miles off Flamborough Head, and a huge air and sea search and rescue. And I do have more information on that, but I'd probably lay awake in bed thinking about it if I started talking about it tonight, guys. So I'm not going to do it. Let's have a look. Yeah, let's have a look here. Can we please put all the question marks in uppercasings for Paul? They're easy to get missed. Yeah, all your questions, please. Yeah, because if I've missed any, I'm sorry. I can't believe how quick that's gone. And as I say, just before we get to it, hopefully we'll be speaking with Annabella next week. Might do an hour first and get Annabella on to talk about her experiences with this shadow type being. I hope she's going to talk. I mean, she said she will. And Professor Simon Holland said he's going to come on. So we'll get him on and pick his brains and see what he's got to share with us. Whitley Strieber said he'd come on as well, and I've just not chased that up, if I'm being truthful. I enjoyed watching you speaking with, that's a coincidence. I'm just looking at that. Professor Simon Holland. It were okay. That's all I'll say. And if Professor Simon Holland is watching this now, that's no slant on you, mate. But I've nothing prepared. I thought I was just going to have a conversation because I'd got an email saying, could we have a conversation about the RAF bases? And I didn't realise that we were going to be doing a recorded interview. Anyway, sometimes it's better to do things like that, isn't it? Because it's better than just being all clinical about things. Let's see what Fortean's got to say here. You've seen the lights out from the cliff tops, sometimes descending to the sea. Do you believe there's something physical behind the lights, that the objects are light, energy, or plasma? It's a great question because it's one that I can't answer, Fortean. I wish I could, but I know there's some people, and I think Professor Holland is probably cite him in question, thinking that these are plasma-based objects, and you might be right. But then you talk to people like Johnny, who we filmed for the documentary, myself and Chris, and he looked at these things. He's an MOD contractor who we've spoke to, who filmed. He's looking at these objects through high-powered binoculars and can see pyramids inside them. So that's incredible, isn't it? And they're turning. So I don't know is my answer to that. I don't know, because you know as well as me, Fortean. I mean, this guy's great at analysing footage as well, by the way. You know as well as me that as fast as you form an opinion, and we've all done this on Cliff Tops, Pete, Linny, Steve, Chris Mack, and all you guys as well, and everybody else who we don't know who's either in it because you've had an experience of your own. There will be some people in here just sort of smiling and wanting to throw a brick through television listening to me, but I still consider you a fan because you're watching me. So I shouldn't say that, should I? But the point is, I hope you haven't brought your telly. So the point is, we don't know. None of us really know, do we? And I don't know. I wish I did. Let's have a look. Tony Worrell. Paul, was good to see you do the chat with Sam. Oh, interesting. Sorry. I'm just putting these up, guys. I'm not reading them. Impressed. Well, I've got to say, I weren't impressed with myself, Tony, because although I'm not scripted and a lot of this is just coming straight off top of my head, I didn't realised we were going to be recording that day. And when I did the Flamborough film, which we put up, me and Bobby, when we visited Flamborough and all those locations, I got in at 4 o'clock and I'd got an email and I were talking at 4:30. Do you know what I mean? And it would have been good to have had a bit of paperwork in front of me, a few notes, should we say? You know, when I used to do, but a great guy to talk to. Let's face it. I really found him fascinating, without a doubt. But when I used to do a lot of the interviews with Howard Hughes, my absolute 100% favourite radio presenter and friend, absolute diamond of a man. When I used to do we used to talk about what we were going to talk about before we went on. You know, we were great friends, and he helped me so much. That man, you know, I can't praise him enough, and he's dearly missed. I'm not going to see it in chat, guys, but hands up who thought that Howard Hughes were the best radio host out there, without a doubt. Definitely best in UK, but probably one of the best in world when it comes to unexplained phenomena and talking about things he could just stand toe to toe with anybody. He was really good. Let's get off this. Let's have a look. Thank you, Truth Proofers. 23,900 subscribers. So, like and subscribe, guys. Thanks, Lee. Mikey's in. Lee Roscoe, Gemma. Man Like Dave. Yeah, Man Like Dave. Lee Roscoe. We keep doing Lee Roscoe. He keeps popping up, does that Lee Roscoe? I'm looking down. Annie F., thank you very much. Really appreciated. And if anybody else has done that and I've missed it, I've not done it on purpose. Let's have a look. Dragonborn Rising. Thanks, Dragonborn. And honestly, Dragonborn set up the Friends of Truth Proof page on Facebook. So anybody who wants to gravitate over to Facebook and just join and contribute, put your thoughts on, throw a few questions. I mean, I've got to hold my hands up. I'm guilty of not contributing enough to anything on Facebook. But seeing as Dragonborn set that up for us, we'll start and put a few things on it. But it looks like the Egyptian amulet. An Egyptian, I can't pronounce it, amulet. So, yeah, I suppose it does a little bit. And, yeah, and that's what he drew. And that's what he claims he saw. So, thank you. Truth proof is never boring. You want to ask my wife. And she gets a bit bored with me. Right, Tony7664. Hi, Paul. I'm the Tony that sent you the anomaly on my CCTV camera this week. Tony, I've looked at it. I said I would. I were out when you sent it. Obviously, I'm not going to see your reply. I'd like to play it next week to people. It is strange. And that's all I will say. I realise it's not fair on you guys talking about it like I'm talking now, but Tony's caught something on CCTV. Now, we've got CCTV. You can get people sending you things, and you can get a thread of cobweb that looks so fine you can't see it, but you can see little nodules of light, almost water vapour on it, and you think that they're orbs, or I don't, but people do. They're not doing it intentionally. You can see, I don't know, all sorts of things whiz past and think it's something. And occasionally you get something that just looks a little bit out of the norm. It doesn't look normal to what people normally see. So Tony's caught some, and at first I did think it was a seed head, you know, like a dandelion seed head or something. But as it's just about to fly out at frame, it kind of flaps. I ain't got time to find it, Tony, because I know I've put it in my downloads, and if I do that, I'll be sort of messing about for a few minutes. We'll have a look at it next week. Let you guys, if you've no objection, we'll let people in chat have a think of what they think it is. We're not going to solve it. We don't know what it is, but it's interesting. So, yeah, so I do thank you for that, mate. Let's have a look. Come on. Don't like to keep this moving. I don't want you guys hanging around too long, do we? Hey, Paul, that drawing reminded me. Oh, well, I can't even read it. From the ancient Egyptian dynasties. Not that it was, just my internal pareidolia. Well, you're probably on the same page as Dragonborn there, then, aren't you? You know, it's interesting that you've both thought the same thing, and good to see you, Zen. Always is. I told you before. Get on here and let's get into your mind a little bit and see what you want to share with us. Let's have a look. French Delta Winged Mirage 2000 jets were based at RAF Leeming for an exercise in 2009. Brilliant. Thank you. And, you know, if we hadn't, I didn't know time, I didn't know how we were going to go on, but I had got a story or I don't know whether it's there now, but I've got a report from Leeming, which I've only probably told once, about a strange object that was seen by to engineers driving home after they'd been out for a night with their wives. So I don't think I'll get to it tonight, but that were interesting, to be honest with you. Let's have a look. Probably could have slowed down and done Wilsthorpe a bit slower, guys, but I hope I didn't overpace it for you. I will just put this in as well. Remember, you can buy Wolflands on DVD, and we are on with Wolflands 2. We've been kicking ideas about. I know I keep saying it, but we are. I've been filming people. I filmed a lady yesterday, and happy birthday as well, Kathy. And it's your birthday today. And it was lovely to film Kathy and speak with her husband yesterday. Myself and Mary, my wife, went. We drove to the location where she saw this thing. And this is the lady that saw that huge creature bounding with her husband, bounding across the field, close to Moor Road, which is in between, excuse me, which is in between Speeton and Filey. And so it bounding, and it weren't dark, and they saw this thing. And comes across as very truthful to me, and they're both adamant about what they saw. So that'll be one. I've talked about it in past, but I'd not actually spoken to the lady face to face until yesterday. So it was good to spend a few hours with him yesterday and get that documented. And yes, superb. Thank you. We'll get rid of that. Wolfland's DVD. I'm all over the place here, Anna. Let's have a look. I think these lights can influence how we feel, as I felt incredibly calm when I had my encounter with the lights on the beach at Primrose. I think I know who you are. Although there's a few had the encounters with lights at Primrose Valley. But if it's the same person, I was thinking about your report today. So give me a nudge in week, please, because I know I've got to meet up with a few people this year and get some face-to-face documented accounts. And I know there's 2 of them that are from Primrose Valley. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if you're the guy that were walking up the beach and you were close to the ramp where I think, is it the land train comes down, or it's close, and you saw what you thought were, I could be wrong, a group of people, a group of teenagers with push bikes with lights on. I mean, that's a joke, isn't it? Because they don't even have lights on now, do they? Have you noticed? But you saw a lot of them, about 20, all come down onto the beach. And you became a little bit unnerved, and then realised they joined a circle and they're just going round and round and then just whizzed off. That's the gist of it. That may be your sighting. If it isn't, I'm sorry, but I still want to hear what it is and just sort of revamp it in my mind, because I've just got that much spinning around in my head. Let's have a look. Simon. Let's have a look. Maybe all the oil rigs out in the North Sea are causing disruptions to this phenomenon. Who could say, Simon? You know, I've got a friend who works on the rigs out in North Sea, and you know, I'd never reveal any more than the fact that he tells me about the Coast Guards contacting the rigs to ask them to look for unusual lights out at sea because they've been reported. It's fascinating in itself, and I've got some of them reports, or actual radio reports. So, you know, not that I can do it with him. Right, where we're going with this now. And thanks for questions, guys. It honestly really helps. And I can see we've dropped a few numbers after I've stopped talking about Wilsthorpe, so I must be boring you. But let's have a look. Eileen saw the lights between the 13th and the 15th of December. Right, who are you? That's interesting. And thank you for adding that. This lady's obviously talking about, I think, Eileen Hobson. And lovely lady, Eileen. I met her many, many times, and a story never changed. And yeah, it were interesting. And what I found fascinating, and it's not just Eileen's encounter or Eileen's sighting, when she looked at them and then went back to tell her husband, who said, "Oh, go back to sleep. It's you're looking at the roundabout." And they'd lived there ages, you know, probably 10 or 12 years. She knew what roundabout looked like, which is a mile away. She went back to have another look, and then she thought that they were watching her, and she couldn't like rest easy in bed. She thought that the eyes were on her, How does that work? How do these spheres of light, or whatever these lights are, and if, as some people think, it's just intelligent light, the intelligent light forms, or if there's something structured behind them, how do they connect to the human mind? The intermind connection, how does that work? I know I'm asking questions to you guys, and I don't think you've got an answer. I'd certainly know I don't. We'll just briefly talk about the fisherman on the cliff tops at Bempton. Winter's night, goes up after tea. It's not late. Sets up, beautiful, crystal clear night. All stars are illuminated. It's absolutely brilliant, and he's fishing. Looks out over the sea, and you can see the stars. So they're not coming down to the sea, but you can see a full spectrum of incredible sight it is. We all know what it's like up there when it's a clear night. But he sees a star he's not seen before. Really bright star. And I bet you guys have done it. Some of you guys will have done exactly the same thing. And he's looking and thinks, what's that star? And before he can think anymore, it's over the top of him. So it's not in the heavens, but it's that object. He said, and the ground around him lit up like a welder's light. The blades of grass looked like steel or like silver. And it was just there for a split second over the top of him, and then it's gone. The intermind connection. Somehow we connect with this unknown other. I don't know how it works, what the process is, but it's almost as though our visual, almost like trips an alarm with the object, with the unknown other. I can't think of any other way that it could happen, but it's fascinating, isn't it, guys? Let's have a look. 14's got another question here. If I could go back in time and observe a single UFO counter as it happened, it would be Wilsthorpe. Yes, Wilsthorpe's fascinating. It really is. And, I hope just that snapshot, that hour that we've talked about Wilsthorpe, guys, that you just realise that some things, it can't be denied, the wealth, the depth of UFO activity in 2009. And don't forget that that's just me. For the reports that I'm talking about, if some of these people, maybe you're watching now in silence, if some of these people could just sort of put their heads above parapet, say, I'll tell you, but I don't want my name used, but I saw this in 2009, I can relate to what you are talking about, then we can add even more meat to the bone. And it is good. I mean, when I talked about it, one of the national newspapers called it the British Roswell. And do you know what I mean? And because the reporters came when I did the conference and talked about Wilsthorpe, the difference is that I've that much stuff in my mind that people are feeding me, and my own thoughts on things, that I think if I concentrated on one case such as Wilsthorpe or one case such as Hummonby, I don't think I'd have time to do anything else, really. You really could devote that much time to it. And incidentally, I think I told you guys last week that I spoke to one of witnesses, Nick, and he says, "Well, we've got to work on it this year. And he wants to do some work on it with me." And I'd be a fool not to, because, as I say, he's an actual witness to Wilsthorpe, and he's a photographer as well. That's his second job, but so he's useful, very, very useful with a camera, better than me. So it'd be very good to have Nick on board and work on on Hummonby with Nick. Probably said Wilsthorpe there, guys. I didn't mean to. Let's have a look. Come on, Paul. What we're doing? 38. Oh God, I can't believe it. Right. Thank you, Nigel. That's very kind of you. Let's have a go. Al Durham, I hope you're feeling better, mate. FY can be a powerful tool, but only if the question is worded correctly. Could you give beginners on the channel some advice on how to phrase them? Not as well as you, Al, if I'm being truthful. If you want, do you know something? He'd probably wish he'd never asked the question, because he knows I always praise him. But if you want some serious research done in an area where Al's willing to look into, and Al Durham, you can see where he is. If anybody's got anything that they want somebody to investigate in that area, get in touch with me and I'll pass this on to Al if Al's got the time. Yeah, because this bloke, I can't praise him enough. He's really, really thorough. But when you're putting these freedom information requests in, let's assume that I didn't know that Links, when I said Links seen at Bridlington, And I'm thinking it's a big cat, and it turns out to be Lynx helicopters or helicopter, and other Chinook and Lynx. I don't know whether 2 Lynx or 1. I can't remember now, but then we narrowed it down to September the 15th because of the newspaper. It gave me that information. If I'd have put a freedom information request in and vaguely said sometime in September or words that were a little bit more vague, I would have got nothing. You've got to be quite accurate in your dates and your timings if you want to get the information. Dave Barker, who comes in chat. If you're in, Dave, good to see you. If you're not, you'll hear it later maybe. But Dave had that incredible sighting on Lighthouse Road in Flamborough back in 2019, where he saw the lights over the sea close to between Bempton and the lighthouse. And they were in configurations looking like numbers on a dice, looking like 5s on a dice and other things. And I think he said a silver sphere left one of them and joined another. And I'd got the time. I'd got the date. Dave rang the police. The police then contacted Coast Guard. Coast Guard contacted him. Somebody, I don't know if they came out to speak to him, but I'd got all that information and it were all tight. It were all accurate. And so I put a freedom information request in. It's hard, I suppose, to deny you that information when you've got all the information that you need to lead them to that particular spot. You know, if 6 months had gone by, and let's assume it were February 23rd, and I'd have put January 2019, probably wouldn't have got that information. So I've not answered it fully. I've not answered it as well as Al Durham would answer it, but Al knows how to fill these in, and Al knows how to, the correct way to do this. Sorry for praising you, Al, because I know you don't like that, but it's true. Let's have a look. And Al's good friends with a mutual friend, which is Andy, who does the ghost walks of Durham. And anybody interested in ghost walks, anybody interested in that kind of thing, get yourself to see Andy, because they're really good. Let's have a look. Comment, I wonder if the black figure is Dee Dee, is that what Michael saw? I wonder if the black figure at Dee Dee is what Michael saw. I don't know, Lee. I don't know. Let's have a look. How do we get one of those gifts? Ah, right. I'm glad you brought that up. Somebody emailed me in the week and it slipped straight out of my mind. And they said they wanted to buy one of these little figures that wanted to know where we could go, what Jack's wife made. And Jack, she gave us this, really kind of Barbara. She gave us all one who'll go up onto cliff tops. And, it's really good. And she's just started experimenting with this. So somebody in the week asked, and I did say, and it could have been you, I will ask Jack. And I'm going to pass Jack's details on to you. And you can contact him direct. Or Jack, put your email address in here if you want. And just reference it to resin models or something like that. It's up to you. But how can you get one of those gifts? Yeah, contact me. I'll pass information on to Jack. Jack's not after Barbara. Jack's wife's not after doing it for any great profit or anything like that. But obviously, she's got to cover materials costs and everything else. I mean, nobody works for free. But yeah, we'll get that out there. Thanks a lot. Let's have a look. 40 and again. Always going to be UFO to most of us, but UAP seems to be an attempt by somewhere to modern. They've rebranded it, haven't they? Just like they rebranded the werewolf to the dogman. I think, it's kind of more acceptable, and it's really touchy with some people because they immediately think if you're talking about werewolf, full moon, silver bullets, and if you actually did your homework and looked at these things, you'd think it predates everything to do with movies and all that kind of thing. This subject of these strange beasts predates all of that. And they also think of lycanthropy and the transformation, and it's not supposed to be anything like that. I don't know what they are. Do I believe that the people who see these things are seeing them? You bet your bottom dollar I do. I've got loads of faith in the people that are sharing this information with me. Tony Worrell, I'll just put that up. Even that Tony Dodd was warned off the case. Yeah, he was. And I spoke to Tony quite a few times, to be honest with you, about it. And yeah, that's all I'll say on that one. Mark, thank you. Really appreciated. and we do as best, mate. That's what we do. All right, let's have a look. Graham Williams. I was in Scarborough on Easter Sunday night time. I was watching a light on the sea, which I assumed was a boat. Looked around, looked back again at the boat and saw a light go into the sea. Fascinating, Graham. Thank you. And so I'm assuming from that, and I think we're all assuming from that, did you see it descend from air and go into the sea, or just the light just disappear? I guess we're not going to get to that tonight, Graham, but message me. I'm interested. Thank you. Because there's lots of reports over years of lights leaving and entering the sea, which is absolutely fascinating. Let's have a look, Tracy. Hi, Paul. I was at Bempton Cliffs last night, 8 p.m. OTCU. Never saw anything unusual, but it was so quiet and still up there. I never heard any birds or see any sound, which I thought was strange. I'm sorry we didn't meet up, Tracy. And if you're still in area, just drop us a line tomorrow. And I'm sure we can meet up. I don't know whether you just come fortnight, but yeah, that would be good. But that's the way of things. I mean, we've been saying, Tracy, we know we heard them strange sounds on Friday night. But as a collective, it's been very quiet up there. Probably for a few months. But then we say that, and when we're documenting it, we've got a little group that we just put different things in. You see, as a collective, there are things being seen, but we kind of. They go over the top of his heads, most of it. With these strange noises that we heard other night, probably a year ago or so, we wouldn't have even talked about them, but we're hearing things like that all the time. Right, let's have a look. In regards to the triangle craft disappearing into the shallow sea, it fits one of the ATIP's 5 UAP observables, that being transmedium travel, where objects are observed moving with ease. Yeah, I can believe it. And this is 2009 Hive. So... we're not breaking new ground, guys, are we? Where I'm telling you tonight that I'm sure that there's reports and sightings. I've said it loads of times. I wrote night people. I'm sure there's people in here tonight, and there's people who'll listen to this afterwards or never listen to it, that were just sat carrying the weight of that around with them in their minds. And there's people who know lots more about the transmedium travel and the objects that are seen entering the sea than I do. And all I'm saying is, if you've got that knowledge, if you've got some information you want to share, put your hand up. Let's do it. Let's have a look. All right. Continue through different environments. Oh, we're back again. Like airspace, air, sea, and in many cases land. I assume some types of phenomena can morph through all matter in the same fashion. I think that's all we can do, Hive. All we can do is assume, because we don't know. And that don't mean you're wrong. I'm just saying we simply don't know. How many times have you guys in chat, you who I'm talking to, and everyone else thought that they knew what was happening, thought you'd got an angle on it, and then something else happens that kind of flips that on its head, and you realise you don't. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's like the threads of the same that run through all of the phenomena, and there's one aspect of the unexplained that runs through all genres, and that's the light forms. That's the spheres of light. You get that in ghost hunts. You get that with poltergeist activity. You get it with cryptid activity. You get it with UFO reports, and some people actually citing the spheres of light as UFOs, I suppose, anomalous lights. But it runs through all aspects of the phenomena. So I suppose we have to conclude that that's a key ingredient, no matter how thin it is. That thread, it's usually there somewhere. And we jumped about a bit there, Hive, didn't I? But let's just keep going down. Let's have a look. We're nearly there, aren't we? Simon Holland. Thank you, Simon Holland. Oh, yeah. Okay. Maybe some of the UFOs that are seen are unmanned, or should that be unaliened? Yeah, it should be unaliened, maybe, because if the true unknowns disabled Welshmen, then they are alien to everything we know and understand, aren't they? And who thinks, and we're not going to get a chance to say, but who thinks they're from outer space? Maybe some are, but I think it's clear that we're being visited, and or the things that are not so much visiting, but the things that are interacting with us are already here. And how do they have the ability, those things that I saw in childhood, how did they have the ability to be in my room? Literally just dematerialize, fragment into nothingness and appear in a room. it's I know it's beyond me, but what I'm meaning is it's just incredible, isn't it? You know, that can happen. And that's why I always jump on it when I hear people say some of the abductions are military abductions. And there may be some people out there that believe that. I'm not going to argue with you. I just agree to disagree. But don't you think if these are military abductions, some of these are military abductions, don't you think if they've got that technology, then they would be being used to eradicate some of the darker things in this world? I do. It kind of tells me that they're not military abductions. But what do I know? And I don't think that would be what happened to me. Why would they subject a 4 or 5-year-old boy to what they did? I don't know. Let's have a look, guys. Has anyone seen a dog man wagging its tail? Just joking. No, I don't think they have. But I tell you what, I mean, obviously, we might never, just on a serious note, we might never ever know any of this, but I've no reports of people being harmed by these things. You know, and I always jump to Broxer. I always jump to Steve and Jimmy and witness number 3. That wanted fear from those men. That milked fear out of those men. You know, I'll never forget Steve when he said to me that he daren't look at it. And every time he did look at it, it put more fear onto him. And the fear that I felt weren't my fear. And that it's learnt me something. That it's learnt me a lot. That man's words and what he shared with me has learnt me a lot when we talk about this fear that descends on a person from nowhere, and we can't explain it. And I wonder if we could flip it, you guys as well, myself, people who come on cliff tops, if we're unfortunate enough to experience that, to actually, and it might be difficult when you're in the moment, but to act, and Steve's had time to sit back and analyze it, but to actually sit and think, was that my fear? Is that irrational fear that's come from nowhere mine? And where am I going with it? The place I'm going with it is this phenomena, whatever it is, does it have the ability to stimulate some kind of chemical within our body that produces the fear? So it's not a mental thing. It's actually doing something internally to us that's stimulating. Wish I knew the name of it. If Martin Abbaswari, he'd tell us what it is. But what I'm saying is it stimulating chemicals and creating some reaction that's producing this intense fear? Because the fear comes from nowhere. When you've got somebody walking in these locations who've I'm not going to say a cliff top, I'm not going to say a woodland, who've walked places similar all of their life or for decades, and then suddenly a fear descends on them. There's something else at work. Is it your own fear? To me, it's the phenomena, whatever that phenomena may be, impressing that fear onto you. So, to be honest with you, 9774, it's not such a daft question. Right, let's have a look. Howard, sadly missed, rest in peace. I've told you on email, you have taken the baton. Always here on a Sunday. Thank you very much. It's really kind of you to say that. But I tell you what, and I'm 100%, I don't need people to put their hand up and say, oh, yeah, you have, Paul. I don't think anybody can replace Howard Hughes. I suggest you go back and listen to Howard's podcast with the people that he spoke to, and he could just sort of converse with them at all levels. I mean, a rare talent, and on top of that, just a nice individual. I was really offended when somebody said I never, by somebody, I can't remember where it came from, but they said I never really gave him any praise after he passed. And that, very few things I'd be vocal about and say that bothered me. That did bother me. And whoever said it, like, don't talk to me again. I don't want to know you, because I really did miss the guy and I really did appreciate him. So anyway, let's jump from that. Jane Louise, I remember the incident very well from the book. Also very unnerving. Mr. and Mrs. Tick, I think it was that was the Night People. Absolutely. And when I wrote Night People, and I honestly believed I was going to get some kind of revelations. I was going to start remembering all sorts of things. So I was deep diving. I wanted to take my mind back to childhood. I should have known it weren't going to happen, because not so much now, but back then, back in 1990s through to probably 2009, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every night I'd lay there analysing it. I'd had this space where everything had stopped happening, and I was busy getting on with life, 4 young children, earning a living. You know, life takes over life. And, I had to concentrate on other things. But when things leveled off, I just couldn't get these things out of my mind. And I thought, when I wrote Night People, I'm going to have more things. There'll be things I forgot about that I'm going to be able to remember. Excuse me. But there were only a couple of things that happened. But that particular story, Mr. and Mrs. Tick, as I called them, like I've just talked about Wilsthorpe. And I'm not saying it because I want people to go, oh, yeah, talk about it, Paul. You'll never hear me talk about it. I've never talked about it. It was frightening. It was the only thing that I toed and froed within the book, whether to put it in or whether not to put it in. And here's my reasoning. Some people have told me things and shared things with me over the years, and they've almost felt like they've created a connection again and caused its eyelids to flicker, if that makes sense. I've talked to people who've had strange sightings and then suddenly felt that they were attached. It was somehow aware of them again, or the phenomena was aware of them again. They've not said they regretted it. I did tell one story, and it did frighten the person who'd shared it with me. And, I've got to admit that, but that weren't my intention. It was their story, and I were allowed to talk about it, but I've never shared it since because I know it unnerved them. It kind of revived it. But this one, the ticks in Night People, absolutely. The ticks, they're horrible creatures, aren't the ticks? Well, that's what they were. And you always think, because they knew, those two people knew about my childhood. And that were frightening. How could they have known? But anyway, there's a lot of distance between where I used to live and Bridlington. And let's just go down here a little bit. Right. Sorry for being a bit slow, people. I've been slow all my life. Right, let's have a look. Cryptids, are they scarecrows for humans? Yeah, in a way they could be, couldn't they? They'd certainly, let's face it. Let's face it, if you saw something like that, I don't care who you are. I know you get people who say, oh, if I saw something like that, I won't shy away. I'm going to walk up to it. I very much doubt that you would, and you're a lot braver than I'll ever be if that's what you'd do, because it's an incredible thing to see something as it's just out of the box of everything that we could see and perceive as normal. And what I find fascinating, obviously, we got the military guy's account on the cliff tops at Bempton, which were incredible. But since then, there's been more reports. And we jump to thought forms. I'm not saying that that's what they are, but don't you find it fascinating that since that report, the strong report, we've got reports before that, but few and far between. But since that one, there's been more. Is that because people are braver and they're more inclined to talk about it because other people have? Or is the phenomena somehow enhanced by us concentrating on it and thinking about it? I don't know. I do know that there's a certain month every year that this cryptid phenomena is seen in our area, and that month has been highlighted in reports time and time again. And that amazes me, by people unconnected to one another. The guy at the bus stop at Danes Dyke, Michael, when he came to the area to just have a walk with his partner, and he saw that strange thing, and he's got the most incredible story of transformation. Absolutely stunning story. And just before we jump into that, people, if we're talking next week with Annabella about strange dark entity encounters from childhood to present day, that's what we'll do. But if we're not, then as a collective, we're going to get the team together and discuss some of the events and incidents. I mean, it's up to me to get some guests, isn't it? But after this live stream, I'll probably be doing something else, and then tomorrow everything's a bit non-stop. But I think you're interested in what people are seeing and experienced around that area anyway. So I've jumped about a bit there, but we're nearly there, guys. That's all right. Let's have a look. Cryptids, aren't they the scarecrows for this group? Maybe. So we've absolutely done. Let's have a look. Another show full of fascinating accounts. Linda's actually said good night for us. But no, absolutely brilliant, Linda, and thank you. I actually thought there would be some Wilsthorpe questions there that I'd missed, so that's why we're kind of chasing them down. But no, it's been fascinating as always, sharing some information with you guys. And you know, I'd love to get a little bit more information on Wilsthorpe, a few more reports. They're out there. There are more people out there that have seen things. There's actually another report, if I could find it. Let's have a look. There were another report of a triangle at Wilsthorpe on the 27th of September 2022 that went down into the sea. I followed it up. I put a freedom information request in. I got nowhere with it, I'll be honest with you. But reliable witness that told me. So your guess is as good as mine, guys. So where are we going here? Let's see this. How about Peter Laws for a guest? Okay, yeah. Well, if you know some of the guests, not just you Welshman, if you know any of these people, or if anybody's emailing or in conversation with anybody that you think would be suitable, yeah, just get them on, or get them to get in touch with me by all means, because it's a failing on Paul, this, because I know tomorrow when I wake up at stupid o'clock, probably 4:30 or 5 o'clock, I'll be doing stuff. And then all I can think about is, I don't know, I've guests at last thing on my mind, which is wrong thing to say, but I need to do it because you guys deserve it. And it's brilliant to have your support. It truly is. I really, really appreciate everything that you guys do, really, because you filled in 2 hours for me as well, which I enjoy on a Sunday. I'm not sure if the light came out of the cliffs because it was already moving, but entered the sea by the boat. Oh, by the boat. Fascinating, Graham. Thank you. Love to hear more about. I know you've told us in them few lines, Graham, but you know it'd be brilliant if you want to fill me in with a little bit more of that, because I'd love to hear about it. And there's a few more bits, but I think Lee's just summed it up there. Have a fantastic weekend, long weekend. Stay safe for the week ahead. Gemma, thanks for doing moderating for us. Lee, thank you. And let's have a look. Linny says, no, night all, take care. Good night, Ian. We'll see you later, guys. And hold on, we've got one more here. If you go to the simulation theory, then the orbs make more sense. Okay, in my opinion. Great stuff. And on that note, I'm going to say, oh, Pete's there. See you later, Pete. I hope you're feeling better. On that note, guys, I'm going to say, have a great weekend. What's left of it. Enjoy your Monday. And all being well, we'll catch you next Sunday. So bye from me. Take care. Bye-bye. Is this an adventure or what? We don't need unexplained phenomena. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey we're taking you on. I know you come expecting to hear about big cats, cryptids, UFOs. We will touch on some of that, but I think it's worth sharing some of this with you, don't you? There's only 2 living souls up here today.
Because I can see it in my mind, I can see it in my head what I saw, but I can't describe.
Our eyes was closed, like a brightish light in my face, and I just felt paralysed.
Someone said there's something out there, so we had a look. It looked like a walnut. That's the only way I can describe it.
It was like it had loads of tiny little windows all over it, and it had lights in those windows, but not a light that illuminates.
Anyway, we were ushered into this lounge. This fella come in, he said, whatever you saw was a weather effect.
And everything is deathly silent. There's no sea, there's no wind, there's no night noise, because there's foxes all over here. There's nothing.